Welcome to this week's Deep Dive. We're taking a close look at the McCrary Institute's cybersecurity briefings from February 3rd to the 7th. It's been a pretty intense week. A Chinese AI platform called DeepSeek is making waves and raising a lot of eyebrows about global security implications. We're going to try to unpack all that for you today, help you figure out what it means. You know what you need to know.
Yeah, the emergence of DeepSeek has been really interesting to track. This platform boasts an R1 reasoning model. They're saying it's comparable in performance to like the top-tier US-made AI models, but at a much lower cost.
Okay, so that's interesting. Cheaper and just as good.
Supposedly. Yeah.
But I'm guessing there's more to the story.
Oh, there's definitely more. I mean,
Right.
think about it. It's already sent shudders through the American tech sector. Like, immediately after it launched, major U.S. tech companies saw their stocks, like, plummet.
So it's already having an economic impact.
Yeah.
But I know there's a lot of talk about the security risks too, right? Like I read reports about DeepSeek safety protocols not being as robust as some of its Western counterparts.
That's right. And that's a huge EE concern. Independent security researchers, we're talking folks from Cisco, the University of Pennsylvania, they all tested it. They tested DeepSeek with, like, malicious prompts, stuff designed to get it to produce harmful content. And guess what?
What?
100% attack success rate.
Wait, 100%. So they could get it to do bad things every single time they tried.
Yep.
All right.
Every single time. And that should set off some serious alarm bells. I mean, if researchers can do that, imagine what a determined bad actor could do with this technology.
It doesn't take much imagination to see how that could be used for all sorts of bad stuff. Disinformation campaigns, propaganda, even worse.
Oh, absolutely. And then there's the espionage angle. Experts are really worried about how DeepSeek collects data. Some are saying it could be a goldmine for the Chinese government.
I was just reading about that. There was a quote that stuck with me. Dewardrick McNeil, he's a China strategy expert over at Longview Global, and he compared DeepSeek's data harvesting to Google search, but said it's 20 times worse.
Yeah, that's a pretty stark assessment. And then there's this whole thing with the code. Cybersecurity researchers actually dug into the code on DeepSeek's website, and they found something, well, suspicious isn't the right word, more like downright alarming.
What did they find?
Code that could potentially send user login information to China Mobile.
China Mobile, that's a...
State-owned telecom company.
And when it's banned in the U.S., right?
Exactly. So you start to connect the dots. We have potential security flaws, super aggressive data gathering, and now this possible link to the Chinese government. It's not a good picture.
No, it's really not, especially when you consider how easily someone could end up using DeepSeek without even realizing these risks.
Precisely. I mean, think about it. A platform that could be spreading disinformation, manipulating public opinion, even carrying out sophisticated espionage operations. And it's all under the radar. I mean, not totally under the radar. Some folks are paying attention. Italy just banned DeepSeek,
They did, over privacy concerns.
Yeah. So that tells you something, right? This isn't just hypothetical anymore. This is real, and it's happening now. DeepSeek is a story we absolutely need to stay on top of.
Agreed. Okay, let's switch gears a bit. Another big topic in the briefings this week was ransomware. It seems like we're seeing a dramatic increase in attacks, but also some pretty big changes in tactics.
Oh, yeah. Big time. In 2024, there were 43 active ransomware groups out there. This year, we're already over 75.
Wow. That's a
Huge EE jump. And more than half of organizations were targeted in attacks last year. That led to a lot of operational shutdowns, huge financial losses. It's a mess.
It really is. But the scariest part is how these ransomware actors are evolving their methods. They're getting more creative, especially when it comes to exploiting the human element.
You're telling me it's not just about data theft anymore. Now they're trying to recruit insiders. Like, they'll offer rewards for dirty laundry, anything that could give them a way into a company's systems. There was one ransomware note. It actually said, if you or your friend hates his boss, write to us and we will make him cry, and the real hero will get a reward from us.
Oh, wow. That's chilling. I mean, they're literally trying to weaponize employee dissatisfaction.
It's disturbing, for sure, and it really highlights the need for companies to pay just as much attention to their internal security risks as they do to external threats. Because a disgruntled employee can be just as dangerous as a sophisticated hacker, sometimes even more so.
Absolutely. Okay, this next topic is one that always seems to be in the headlines, but this week's briefings really highlighted the vulnerability of critical infrastructure. a bit unsettling, frankly.
Yeah, it always is. You never quite get used to it.
Yeah.
The DHS, they issued a bulletin about internet-connected cameras made in China.
Right, those cameras. A lot of them lack encryption and constantly communicate with the manufacturer, creating potential backdoors for, well, pretty much anything. Espionage, disruption.
Exactly. And get this, they estimate that tens of thousands of these cameras are already deployed on critical U.S. infrastructure networks. Energy, chemical sectors. It's a big problem.
So let's say a hostile actor gets access.
Yeah.
What's a worst-case scenario here? We talking data leaks or something even more disruptive?
It could be way worse than just data leaks. Think about it. They could disable safety mechanisms, trigger false alarms, even suppress real alarms. They could essentially turn those systems against the very infrastructure they're supposed to be protecting. It's not a good thought.
No, not at all. And on a related note, the briefing also mentioned that the Baltic states, Lithuania, Latvia, and Estonia, are bracing for potential cyber attacks.
Oh, right. They're disconnecting from the Russian power grid and synchronizing with Western Europe's system. Historic move.
It is. But it's also making them a target. They're expecting some sort of retaliation from Russia, maybe cyber attacks, maybe sabotage.
It's a scary reminder of how deeply intertwined cybersecurity and geopolitics really are.
It is. Speaking of vulnerabilities, the UK government admitted this week that they missed their target for fortifying their civilian IT systems.
Yeah, they were supposed to have everything buttoned up by 2025. They blame it on legacy systems. Upgrading everything is a massive undertaking. Expensive, complicated.
And governments aren't exactly known for being nimble and quick, right?
Nope.
Not at all. Okay, let's talk about the human factor, particularly within the government workforce. There's been some buzz about the Trump administration wanting to change how they fill certain federal technology positions.
Yeah, they want to make a bunch of those roles into political appointments. So instead of hiring based on expertise, you could end up with someone in a critical cybersecurity role simply because of their political connections.
That's concerning. And on top of that, there are the buyout offers. A lot of folks are worried about those, especially at CISA and in the intelligence community.
Yeah, there are arguments on both sides. Some folks think it's a good way to streamline things, maybe save some money. Others are worried it'll create knowledge gaps, weaken our cyber defenses.
It's a tough call. Losing experienced people in such a critical field, that could have some serious consequences down the line.
Absolutely. It's a risk, no doubt about it.
There is some good news, though. Congress is looking at a bill to create a scholarship program, kind of like ROTC, but for cyber degrees.
Oh, that's interesting. That could be a good way to help address the cyber skills gap. We desperately need more people in this field, and we need them to be well-trained, ready to hit the ground running. It's a field that changes constantly. It requires people who can adapt, who can not only grasp the technology, but also really understand the threat landscape.
Yeah, it's not just about technical skills, right? You need critical thinking, problem solving, good communication. You need people who can see the big picture.
Absolutely. That's what makes this field so challenging and so rewarding. It's never boring, that's for sure. It's not just about technical skills, though.
Right. It's also about critical thinking, problem solving, communication.
Exactly. We need individuals who can not only understand and mitigate those technical threats, but also communicate those threats effectively. Collaborate across disciplines, adapt to that constantly shifting landscape.
And speaking of things that shift constantly, the briefings also highlighted a pretty concerning incident this week, the mid-air collision over the Potomac River. It kind of raises some questions about the strain on the workforce responsible for air traffic control.
That's a critical infrastructure component we often take for granted, right? You don't think about it until something like this happens, and then it really underscores the potential impact of budget cuts and workforce reductions on something as crucial as aviation safety.
It's a chilling reminder that cybersecurity vulnerabilities can have very real-world consequences, even in areas that might not seem directly related at first glance.
Exactly. This incident highlights just how interconnected our systems are and the cascading effects that can occur when one piece of the puzzle is weakened.
And that interconnectedness is only going to increase as we rely more and more on complex systems, right? I mean, think about the space domain. More nations, more private companies are venturing out there, and that creates a whole new set of challenges.
Oh, absolutely. There was a lot of discussion this week about the need for uniform cybersecurity standards for space systems. Right now, it's kind of a fragmented landscape. You've got NIST, CISA, even commercial providers, all developing their own standards.
So there's no real consistency.
Not really. And that lack of interoperability, that could be a real problem. I mean, it could hinder information sharing between allies, potentially even weaken our collective defenses against adversaries who are targeting space assets.
So we need to get on the same page globally.
Exactly. This fragmentation creates vulnerabilities that adversaries can exploit, and that's something we can't afford. Establishing a cohesive and collaborative approach to space cybersecurity, that has to happen on an international level.
International collaboration is also key in combating the ever-growing threat of cybercrime, right? The briefings this week painted a pretty stark picture of just how sophisticated these criminal organizations are becoming.
Cybercrime is a global industry now, with far-reaching consequences. We saw reports this week about syndicates targeting banks, financial institutions, cryptocurrency exchanges, even online dating platforms.
And they're not just using, simple tactics anymore. They're leveraging advanced malware, social engineering techniques, even exploiting vulnerabilities in legitimate software and services. They're getting really good at this.
And the volume of attacks is just staggering. We're talking millions of password spraying attempts, thousands of malicious apps, countless data breaches impacting individuals, businesses, government agencies.
It's overwhelming.
It is. One tactic that's particularly concerning is infrastructure laundering. Basically, attackers hide their malicious activity within legitimate cloud hosting services. AWS, Microsoft Azure, you name it.
So they're hiding in plain sight.
Exactly. It makes it so much harder for security professionals to identify and mitigate those threats.
So what can be done? I mean, it feels like a losing battle sometimes.
Well, there are some positive developments. Law enforcement agencies are cracking down on these cybercrime rings, seizing their assets, bringing perpetrators to justice.
That's good to hear.
It's a reminder that international cooperation is absolutely crucial if we want to dismantle these organizations. We're also seeing some proactive steps being taken to address the root causes of cybercrime. Things like poverty, lack of education, limited economic opportunities.
This is a more holistic approach.
It has to be. It's about combining law enforcement, education, and economic development to create a more resilient and secure digital ecosystem.
Okay, let's shift gears again. I want to talk about the ongoing debate surrounding the NSA and Cyber Command's dual-hat leadership structure. That's been a hot topic for years, with strong opinions on both sides.
Oh, yeah. It's a tricky one. Some folks argue that having one leader for both organizations makes sense. It ensures better coordination, a more unified approach to cyber threats.
But others say separating those roles would allow each organization to really focus on its core mission, and maybe avoid potential conflicts of interest.
Right, exactly. It's a complex debate with no easy answers. It's going to continue to shape the evolution of U.S. cyber capabilities for years to come.
And speaking of evolving capabilities, we can't forget about artificial intelligence. It's transforming almost every aspect of our lives, and at an incredible pace. But that also creates new challenges.
Absolutely. As AI advances, so do the ethical and security challenges that come with it. The briefings this week highlighted concerns about bias in AI systems, the risks of adversarial attacks, and the need for really robust governance frameworks.
There's that story about the researcher who managed to, outsmart and jailbreak OpenAI's new O3 mini model. It's a reminder that even the most advanced AI systems can be vulnerable to manipulation.
It's a wake-up call. We have to approach this technology with caution, make sure its development and deployment align with our values, and prioritize safety and security above all else.
Especially when you consider how much we're starting to rely on AI for things like critical infrastructure, national security systems. It's everywhere.
And the consequences of security failures in those areas, potentially catastrophic.
Yeah. So we need to have these tough conversations now, while we still have the opportunity to shape the future of AI in a responsible way.
Exactly. And to shape that future, we need to focus on education, on workforce development in the cybersecurity realm.
The cyber skills gap is a huge problem, and it's not going away anytime soon. We need a multi-pronged approach to tackle it.
Absolutely. The briefings mentioned the UK fast-tracking the recruitment of cyber warriors. And here in the U.S., Congress is revisiting the idea of an ROTC-like scholarship program for cyber degrees.
That's encouraging, but it's just a start.
Right. It's not just about filling positions. It's about fostering a culture of cybersecurity awareness. It's about empowering individuals to become active participants in protecting our digital world.
So cybersecurity education should be a part of school curricula.
Absolutely. We need mentorship programs, opportunities for hands-on learning, And again, it's not just about the technical skills. Critical thinking, problem solving, communication, these are all just as important. We need people who can not only understand and mitigate technical threats, but who can also communicate those threats effectively, collaborate across disciplines.
It's a lot to ask.
It is, but it's what we need.
This all sounds expensive.
It is, but we need to shift our perspective on cybersecurity investments. It's often viewed as a cost center, but it's really an investment in resilience, in security, in long-term stability.
So organizations need to be proactive, not reactive.
Exactly. It's not enough to just comply with regulations. You have to integrate cybersecurity into your core operations, allocate the resources necessary to stay ahead of the threats. And that means investing in technology, in people, in processes, even things like cyber insurance to mitigate potential financial losses in the event of a successful attack.
Cybersecurity is everyone's responsibility.
It is. It's not just an IT issue. It's a business issue, a national security issue, a societal issue. It's something that requires a comprehensive and collaborative approach. And it's an investment we simply can't afford to neglect. It really is an investment we can't afford to neglect. As we wrap up our deep dive into this week's cybersecurity landscape, what are your main takeaways?
I think the thing that keeps coming back to me is that tension between, how fast technology is advancing and our ability to actually secure those advancements. We see it with like AI platforms like that DeepSeek thing we were talking about, credible capabilities, but also like huge questions about data privacy, potential for espionage, misuse.
It's a tough one, right? The double-edged sword of progress. And it's not going away. If anything, it's going to get harder. Technology just keeps accelerating, and we're going to keep running into these dilemmas.
Yeah. And the human element in all of this, that's another big takeaway. Ransomware actors targeting disgruntled employees, concerns about political influence on cybersecurity decisions. People can be the weakest link, but also the strongest asset. It's a tough balance.
It really is. We have to figure out how to mitigate human error, human vulnerability, but also leverage human ingenuity, human collaboration. It's the only way we're going to stay ahead of the bad guys.
And I think the final takeaway for me is just how interconnected everything is. The cyber landscape is so complex. Undersea cables, space systems, critical infrastructure, our phones, it's all linked. And a security failure in one area can quickly cascade outwards. I mean, the consequences could be global.
It's a good point. Cybersecurity isn't some isolated thing. It's woven into every aspect of our lives now. And if we want to secure our future, well, it's going to take a holistic approach. We all need to be working together on this.
So big, complex challenges. What's one final thought our listeners can take away from all of this?
I guess it comes back to that question of individual responsibility. In this world, this hyper-connected world, where the lines between physical and digital are so blurred, what role can each of us play in creating a more secure future? It's a question we're thinking about.
It is, and it's something we'll definitely keep exploring in future deep dives. Until then, stay vigilant, stay informed, and stay safe out there.